news hit like a thunderbolt through the gossip world, and if you thought the Sussex drama couldn't get any messier, buckle up because what just emerged is absolutely staggering. Jessica Mulroney, the woman who once stood by Meghan Markle's side as her closest confidante, has watched her 16-year marriage crumble into dust, and the whispers circulating right now suggest this implosion has everything to do with private communications that surfaced at the worst possible time. Sources close to the situation revealed that Jessica stopped wearing her wedding ring weeks before anyone caught on. She reportedly broke the devastating news to friends at a lavish Toronto wedding that was dripping with celebrity power. We're talking an event where Drake and LeBron James were mingling among the guests. That's the caliber of gathering where Jessica chose to quietly confirm that her fairy tale marriage to Ben Mulroney was officially over. For those unfamiliar with the name, Ben Mulroney isn't just some random Canadian television personality. He's the son of former Canadian Prime Minister Brian Mulroney, which means this family sits at the absolute pinnacle of Canadian society. The Mulroneys weren't just wealthy, they were connected, influential, and for years they represented everything aspirational about Toronto's elite social scene. But here's where things get truly explosive. Insiders are now claiming that Jessica discovered private text messages and communications that shattered everything she thought she knew about her marriage. The term being used behind closed doors is penetrating conversations, and while the full details remain murky, the implications are sending shockwaves through royal watching circles on both sides of the Atlantic. Why does this matter to anyone following the Sussex saga? Because Jessica Mulroney wasn't just some casual acquaintance to Meghan Markle. She was the keeper of secrets. She was the woman who helped Meghan hide her early romance with Prince Harry from prying eyes. She styled Meghan for those iconic engagement photos. Her own children walked down the aisle at Windsor Castle as page boys and bridesmaid during the royal wedding that captivated the entire world. And now sources are suggesting that whatever Jessica discovered in those private communications has direct connections to her former best friend, the same woman who dropped her like yesterday's headlines when controversy came calling. A Canadian insider told media outlets that Jessica appeared sad but also relieved to have some clarity. That's a fascinating choice of words, isn't it? Relieved, as if the truth, however painful, finally freed her from something she'd been carrying for far too long. The separation reportedly happened some time ago, meaning Jessica has been processing this devastation privately while the rest of us remained oblivious. But now the floodgates are opening, and what comes next could potentially rewrite everything we thought we understood about the Meghan Markle friendship that once dominated tabloid headlines. But this is merely the surface of something far more explosive. To truly understand the magnitude of this marriage implosion, you need to grasp just how powerful the Mulroney name is in Canada. This wasn't some ordinary celebrity breakup. This was the shattering of a dynasty that once seemed absolutely untouchable. Ben Mulroney grew up in the shadows of political royalty. His father, Brian Mulroney, served as Canada's 18th Prime Minister from 1984 to 1993. The elder Mulroney was a towering figure in Canadian politics, rubbing shoulders with world leaders and shaping the nation's direction for nearly a decade. When Brian passed away in February of 2024, the entire country mourned. This was a family that commanded respect, wielded influence, and moved through the highest circles of Canadian society with effortless grace. Ben carved his own path in the entertainment world, becoming the beloved host of eTalk, Canada's premier entertainment news program. He was charming, polished, and possessed that rare combination of political pedigree and television charisma that made him a household name. When he married Jessica Brownstein in October of 2008 at Montreal's stunning St. Patrick's Basilica, it felt like Canadian royalty was being born. Jessica brought her own impressive credentials to the union. Born into a prominent Jewish family, she was the great-granddaughter of Benjamin Brownstein, founder of the iconic Brown's Shoes empire. She attended the prestigious Miss Edgar's and Miss Cramp's school before graduating from McGill University. Her career as a fashion stylist placed her at the intersection of celebrity and luxury, dressing everyone from Sophie Trudeau to Shania Twain. Together, Ben and Jessica became Toronto's undisputed power couple. They were photographed at every major gala. They summered in the right places. They knew everyone worth knowing. Their 3 children, twin boys Brian and John, born in August of 2010, and daughter Ivy, born in June of 2013, seemed destined to carry forward this legacy of privilege and prestige. But appearances, as we've learned time and again in the world of the wealthy and famous, can be devastatingly deceptive. Behind the polished Instagram photos and the charity galas, cracks were forming that would eventually split this seemingly perfect life wide open. The couple's connection to actual royalty through Jessica's friendship with Meghan Markle elevated their status even further. Suddenly, they weren't just Canadian famous, they were internationally recognized. Their children didn't just attend fancy schools, they walked alongside princes and princesses at a wedding, watched by billions. Yet that very connection would ultimately contribute to their undoing. The same spotlight that illuminated their glamorous existence would eventually expose the shadows lurking beneath the surface. When controversy came for Jessica in 2020, the fallout would test everything, including her marriage to the man she'd built an empire beside. And what insiders are now revealing suggests the damage ran far deeper than anyone publicly acknowledged. The year was 2011, and a young actress named Meghan Markle had just landed a recurring role on the legal drama Suits, which filmed in Toronto. She was ambitious, charming, and desperately seeking entry into the city's elite social circles. That's when fate, or perhaps calculated strategy, brought her into Jessica Mulroney's orbit. Their friendship ignited quickly and burned with an intensity that raised eyebrows among those who witnessed it. Within months, the two women were practically inseparable. They brunched together. They worked out together. They shared secrets that bound them in ways outsiders couldn't fully comprehend. Jessica later described Meghan as her soulmate, a term that carries weight far beyond casual friendship. But here's what makes this relationship so fascinating in retrospect. Jessica wasn't just offering Meghan companionship, she was offering access. Through the Mulroney connection, Meghan gained entry to a world of political influence, media power, and social prestige that would have otherwise remained firmly closed to a mid-level television actress from Los Angeles. When Meghan began secretly dating Prince Harry in 2016, it was Jessica who helped orchestrate the elaborate cover-up. She understood discretion, she knew how to navigate media attention, and she provided the perfect shield for a romance that needed protection from prying eyes during its fragile early stages. Jessica's dedication to this friendship was nothing short of remarkable. She reportedly styled Meghan for those breathtaking engagement photos that announced the royal romance to the world. Every detail was carefully curated, every look meticulously planned. This wasn't just friendship. This was Jessica investing her professional reputation and personal energy into Meghan's fairy tale transformation. The royal wedding in May of 2018 represented the absolute peak of their bond. Jessica's children played prominent roles in the ceremony. Her twin sons served as page boys, looking adorable in their miniature suits. Her daughter Ivy helped carry Meghan's stunning train, and Jessica herself, though not officially titled as Maid of Honor, functioned as exactly that throughout the entire spectacular event. Sources who observed them during this period noted something peculiar about the dynamic. Meghan seemed to rely on Jessica for everything, from wardrobe decisions to emotional support. Yet the relationship appeared oddly one-sided. Jessica gave endlessly while Meghan absorbed it all, offering little in return beyond the reflected glow of her rising star. Those close to Jessica reportedly urged caution. They warned her about investing so heavily in someone whose ambitions seemed limitless and whose loyalties seemed conditional. But Jessica was devoted, convinced that this friendship was different, that their bond was unbreakable. She would soon discover just how catastrophically wrong that assumption was. Because when the storm clouds gathered and controversy came crashing down, Meghan's response would reveal a coldness that shocked even the most cynical observers. Now we arrive at the heart of this explosive scandal, the private communications that reportedly sent Jessica Mulroney's world spinning into chaos. What exactly did she discover, and why are insiders suggesting it connects directly to her former best friend? Sources speaking to various media outlets have used a particularly loaded term to describe what Jessica allegedly uncovered. They're calling them penetrating conversations. In the delicate language of high society divorce, that phrase carries implications that stretch far beyond innocent text exchanges between friends. According to whispers circulating through royal watching circles, Jessica didn't simply stumble upon a stray suspicious message. She reportedly excavated an entire archive of communications that painted a devastating picture of betrayal. We're talking about timestamps, phone logs, and exchanges that allegedly span years, the kind of digital evidence that forces a person to re-examine everything they thought they understood about their own life. The emerging theory, shared cautiously by those familiar with the situation, suggests that Meghan Markle's relationship with the Mulroney household may have been far more complicated than anyone publicly acknowledged. Some corners of the internet are speculating about emotional manipulation, others are whispering about strategic friendships designed to access power and influence, and a few brave voices are suggesting the betrayal cut even deeper than that. What makes this situation particularly explosive is the timing. Jessica's marriage didn't simply fade away through years of growing apart. According to sources, the discovery of these communications triggered an immediate crisis. She stopped wearing her wedding ring. She began confiding in friends about feeling manipulated and used, and she reportedly started gathering what insiders are calling insurance. That word insurance keeps appearing in discussions about Jessica's next moves. It suggests she possesses evidence, documentation, and perhaps testimony that could prove extraordinarily damaging if released publicly. She has the message logs. She has corroborating accounts from witnesses who observed things that made them uncomfortable. She has years of intimate access to one of the most scrutinized women on the planet. The Mulroney family reportedly responded to the marriage crisis by completely icing Jessica out. This is what powerful dynasties do. When someone threatens to ignite a scandal that could consume the entire family legacy, they circle the wagons, they protect the name, They make clear that loyalty to the family must supersede any impulse toward public revelation. But Jessica, according to those who know her, has reached a breaking point. After years of defending Meghan, after losing her career while her famous friend remains silent, after watching her marriage disintegrate amid discoveries she never anticipated, the woman who once kept all the secrets may finally be ready to start sharing them. Whispers of a potential tell-all project have been growing louder. And if Jessica decides to deploy that insurance she's allegedly been collecting, the fallout could be absolutely catastrophic for everyone involved. To understand why Jessica Mulroney might finally be ready to burn everything down, we need to revisit the moment her carefully constructed life first began crumbling. June of 2020 marked the beginning of her spectacular fall from grace, and the way Meghan handled it revealed something deeply troubling about the nature of their friendship. The world was reeling from the murder of George Floyd. The Black Lives Matter movement had exploded into a global reckoning with racial injustice. Social media became a battleground where influencers and celebrities were expected to declare their positions loudly and clearly. Into this volatile moment stepped Sussexes, a black lifestyle influencer from Toronto, who would inadvertently expose the ugliness lurking beneath Jessica's polished exterior. Exeter posted a video accusing Jessica of threatening her livelihood after she had made a general call for influencers to use their platforms in support of black voices. According to Exeter, Jessica took this as a personal attack and responded with what she described as a series of very problematic behavior and antics that culminated in written threats. The accusations painted Jessica as the embodiment of white privilege weaponized against a black woman during the most racially charged moment in recent memory. The consequences arrived with devastating speed. ABC immediately severed ties with their fashion contributor. CTV canceled her reality show I Do Redo without hesitation. Hudson's Bay terminated their lucrative partnership. Cityline dropped her as a guest stylist. Within days, Jessica went from celebrated celebrity insider to toxic pariah that no brand would touch. Ben Mulroney resigned from his position at eTalk just days after the scandal erupted, claiming solidarity with his wife. But sources close to the family painted a different picture. The powerful Mulroney clan reportedly staged an intervention, furious that Jessica was damaging the Mulroney brand with her behavior and the resulting publicity nightmare. Jessica released a public apology that referenced her closest friend in terms that clearly meant Meghan. She spoke about having learned from a very public and personal experience with my closest friend where race was front and center. She claimed it had been deeply educational and promised to continue learning and listening. But here's what makes this tragedy so pointed. While Jessica was publicly apologizing, losing her career, and spiraling into what she later described as depression requiring antidepressants and intensive therapy, where was her supposedly devoted best friend? Where was the woman who had relied on Jessica for years of support, styling, and secret-keeping? Meghan Markle was nowhere to be found. She didn't defend Jessica publicly. She didn't release a supportive statement. She simply vanished from Jessica's life, as if their years of friendship had never existed. Sources close to Meghan at the time reportedly indicated that Jessica's behavior was hugely offensive to the Duchess. The abandonment was swift, cold, and absolute, and it planted seeds of resentment that would eventually bloom into something far more dangerous. What happened next defied everything. Jessica thought she knew about loyalty, friendship, and the woman she had called her soulmate. Meghan didn't just distance herself during the scandal. She performed a complete and surgical deletion of Jessica Mulroney from her existence, and the brutality of that erasure left observers genuinely stunned. One day, Jessica was the trusted confidante who knew where the bodies were buried. The next day, she was treated like a stranger whose number had been blocked. Sources described Meghan's approach as less of a gradual cooling off and more of a total excommunication. Jessica reportedly reached out repeatedly in the aftermath of the scandal, desperate for some acknowledgement from the friend she had sacrificed so much to support. Those attempts were met with deafening silence. The evidence of this ghosting became increasingly public as time passed. When Meghan returned to Instagram in early 2025 with a carefully curated new account, Jessica was conspicuously absent from any content. When Netflix released With Love Meghan, the lifestyle series showcasing the Duchess surrounded by her inner circle, Jessica was nowhere to be seen. Close friends like Abigail Spencer, Kelly McKee-Zajfin, Delphina Figueres, and Daniel Martin all received prominent screen time. The woman who had once been Meghan's unofficial maid of honor apparently no longer existed in her universe. This wasn't an oversight. This was deliberate and calculated exclusion. Meghan was sending a message that their friendship was not merely paused, but permanently terminated. Jessica had become inconvenient, and inconvenient people get discarded in Meghan's world without a second thought. Sources who spoke to Jessica during this period described a woman in genuine crisis. She reportedly struggled with depression, relying on medication and therapy to process the dual trauma of public cancellation and private betrayal. The career destruction was painful enough, but But losing her best friend at the exact moment she needed support most felt like a knife twisted directly into her heart. One insider painted a particularly devastating portrait. Jessica was described as someone who couldn't get a job after Meghan dumped her, and had essentially become a toxic socialite whose association with the Duchess had transformed from asset to liability overnight. Everything she had built through years of networking and relationship cultivation had evaporated, and perhaps most painful of all was watching Meghan continue thriving while Jessica struggled to rebuild from the ashes. The Duchess moved on to new projects, new friendships, and new opportunities without ever publicly acknowledging what her former best friend was enduring. The contrast couldn't have been more stark or more humiliating. For years, Jessica remained largely silent about the abandonment, perhaps hoping that reconciliation was still possible. But as time passed and the rejection remained absolute, something shifted inside her. The loyalty that once defined her began transforming into something far more dangerous. She started recognizing patterns she had previously refused to see. While Jessica Mulroney was processing her shattered marriage and gathering her so-called insurance, the Sussex operation was experiencing its own spectacular implosion, and the timing of these parallel disasters feels almost too coincidental to ignore. Just days ago, news broke that Meredith Maines had resigned as the Sussexes' chief communications officer. She lasted barely 10 months in the position. That makes her the 11th publicist to flee Harry and Meghan's employment in just 5 years. Let that staggering number sink in for a moment. 11 public relations professionals have walked away from what should be one of the most prestigious gigs in celebrity communications. The official statements were predictably bland. Maines claimed she had completed inspiring work with the couple and was pursuing new opportunities. A Sussex spokesperson thanked her for her contributions and wished her well, but insiders painted a far messier picture of what actually transpired behind closed doors. Reports suggest the final straw came after the Kardashian birthday party debacle. Harry and Meghan attended Kris Jenner's 70th birthday celebration at Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez's $175 million Beverly Hills mansion. They mingled with Beyoncé, Jay-Z, Kim Kardashian, Bill Gates, and Mark Zuckerberg. Photos were taken and posted to Instagram by the Kardashian-Jenner family. Then things got awkward. The Sussex camp reportedly demanded those photos be removed from social media. Sources claim they didn't want to upset the royal family while attempting reconciliation. But another insider suggested the Kardashian-Jenner clan was growing annoyed with the Sussex team for overshadowing what was supposed to be a celebration of Kris. The fallout from this incident reportedly accelerated Mains's departure. She submitted her resignation before Christmas and agreed to help with the transition into the new year. But make no mistake, this was not the graceful exit of a mission accomplished. This was another professional fleeing a situation that had become untenable. Editor Tom Sykes from the Daily Beast delivered perhaps the most brutal assessment. He wrote that the Sussexes have had a terrible year PR-wise and their reputation has sunk like a stone. He described their operation as a brand that has spent 5 years pinballing between reinvention, self-inflicted fiasco, and frantic damage control. The pattern he identified is damning. Senior professionals arrive with impressive resumes. They attempt to impose structure and strategy. Then they vanish months later, often accompanied by carefully worded statements that read like they've been mailed in from a re-education camp. The burning question Sykes posed cuts to the heart of the Sussex operation. Are Harry and Meghan simply impossible to work for? Former staff members have privately described Meghan as a demon with psycho moments. The Hollywood Reporter infamously called her a dictator in high heels. These aren't isolated complaints. They represent a pattern that keeps repeating. As if the Sussex universe wasn't chaotic enough, December brought another devastating headline that exposed the depths of family dysfunction surrounding Meghan Markle. Her 81-year-old father Thomas underwent emergency surgery in the Philippines that resulted in his left leg being amputated below the knee. And Meghan's response, or lack thereof, has sparked outrage across the globe. Thomas Markle Jr. revealed the harrowing details to media outlets. His father had been rushed to a hospital in Cebu after a massive blood clot cut off circulation to his leg. The limb had turned black and blue. Doctors determined the situation was life or death. There was simply no other option but amputation to save his life. The 3-hour surgery took place on December 3rd. Thomas Sr. spent 5 agonizing days in intensive care while doctors monitored for infection, sepsis, and gangrene. His son described those initial days as critical, with the medical team genuinely uncertain whether his father would survive the ordeal. From his hospital bed, Thomas made a heartbreaking plea that echoed around the world. He expressed his desperate desire to see Meghan one last time before he dies. He wants to meet Prince Harry, the son-in-law he has never encountered face to face. He longs to embrace his grandchildren Archie and Lilibet, who remain complete strangers to him despite sharing his blood. The elderly man revealed he has kept the same phone number for years specifically so Meghan could always reach him. That line has remained silent. No calls, no texts, No genuine attempt at reconciliation from his famous daughter. What did Meghan allegedly do instead? According to reports, she sent a letter through the United States consulate in the Philippines. The document was hand-delivered by a hospital president in the presence of a lawyer. The entire exchange was reportedly filmed as if it were evidence at a legal proceeding rather than a daughter reaching out to her ailing father. Sources indicated that Meghan has no plans to actually visit Thomas in the Philippines. Despite having access to private jets that could make the 15-hour journey entirely manageable, she reportedly prefers spending the holidays in Montecito with Harry, the children, and her mother Doria Ragland. A trip abroad for New Year's celebrations apparently takes priority over a dying father's bedside. Thomas is now facing months of rehabilitation. He's learning to use a walking frame before progressing to crutches and eventually a prosthetic limb. He told reporters he sometimes experiences phantom sensations, feeling like his leg is still attached when it clearly is not. The parallels to how Meghan treated Jessica Mulroney are impossible to ignore. When people become inconvenient or problematic, they get erased. Whether it's a best friend facing scandal or a father recovering from life-threatening surgery, the response appears chillingly consistent. Step back for a moment and examine the wreckage scattered across Meghan Markle's personal and professional landscape. The connections become impossible to ignore. The pattern emerges with devastating clarity, and the common denominator in every shattered relationship points directly back to one person. Jessica Mulroney devoted years of her life to supporting Meghan's ascent. She provided access, styling expertise, emotional support, and most importantly, unwavering loyalty during the most vulnerable moments of Meghan's transformation from actress to royalty. Her reward? Complete abandonment, the instant she became a liability, deleted from existence without a backward glance. Thomas Markle spent decades raising his daughter. He funded her education, supported her acting dreams, and by all accounts provided a loving foundation for her early life. One mistake involving staged paparazzi photos before her wedding, and he was permanently exiled. Now he lies in a Philippine hospital, learning to walk with a prosthetic leg while his daughter sends lawyers and paperwork instead of love. The professional casualties stack up with alarming consistency. 11 publicists in 5 years have fled the Sussex operation. Emily Robinson departed after mere months as director of communications. Ben Mulroney, who secured their Netflix documentary deal, eventually moved on despite claims of positive experiences. Staff members cycle through Archwell with such regularity that industry observers have stopped being surprised by the departures. Former employees have whispered damning assessments to journalists willing to listen. The Hollywood Reporter published accounts describing Meghan as a dictator in high heels. Other sources characterized her as having psycho moments that left staff members walking on eggshells. These aren't disgruntled individuals seeking revenge. These represent a pattern of testimony from people who experienced something troubling enough to risk speaking about it. The Sussexes have consistently dismissed such characterizations as fabrications or media smears. Their official position maintains they are wonderful employers who inspire loyalty and gratitude. Yet the revolving door of personnel tells a dramatically different story. At a certain point, the volume of departures becomes impossible to explain away as coincidence or conspiracy. What emerges from this accumulated evidence is a portrait of relationships treated as transactional arrangements. People serve their purpose until they no longer provide value or until they become inconvenient. Then they are discarded with stunning efficiency. The warmth and connection that characterized the relationship while it served Meghan's interests evaporates instantly when circumstances change. Jessica Mulroney apparently tolerated this treatment for years, hoping that her devotion would eventually be reciprocated. Her reward was watching her marriage crumble while discovering communications that allegedly revealed just how thoroughly she had been used. Her father continues hoping for reconciliation despite years of rejection that would break most people entirely. But perhaps the tide is finally turning, because the people Meghan discarded are starting to compare notes. The walls are closing in on the Sussex operation from every conceivable direction, and the pressure is building towards something that feels increasingly inevitable. Jessica Mulroney possesses what insiders are calling insurance. 11 publicists have fled in 5 years. An elderly father lies in a hospital bed dreaming of reconciliation that never comes. And somewhere in Montecito, the carefully constructed narrative is showing cracks that no amount of rebranding can repair. Reports suggest Jessica has been quietly compiling her evidence for months. She allegedly has message logs, witness accounts, and years of intimate knowledge about a woman who trusted her with secrets that were never meant to see daylight. The question isn't whether this material exists. The question is whether Jessica will finally deploy it. Whispers of a potential tell-all project have been growing louder in publishing circles. This wouldn't be some hastily assembled tabloid fodder. This would be a comprehensive account from someone who occupied the innermost circle of Meghan's life during her most transformative years. Someone who watched the machinery operate from the inside. Someone who now has nothing left to lose. The Sussexes' attempt at royal reconciliation appears equally fragile. Harry met briefly with King Charles in September after 19 months of estrangement. Sources claimed the reunion was facilitated partly through back-channel communications between their respective PR teams. Yet within days of that meeting, details leaked to the press, further damaging whatever trust had been tentatively rebuilt. Kate Middleton has reportedly expressed a desire to extend an olive branch to Meghan for the sake of the children. Sources claim she wants George, Charlotte, and Louis to have a relationship with their American cousins Archie and Lilibet, but trust has been so thoroughly destroyed that even these maternal instincts face seemingly insurmountable obstacles. Meanwhile, the Archewell Foundation has been rebranded as Archewell Philanthropies, amid reports of staff reductions to just 2 employees. Sources describe a cost-cutting operation that contradicts the image of thriving humanitarian enterprise the Sussexes project publicly. The gap between perception and reality grows wider by the day. Thomas Markle continues his rehabilitation in the Philippines, still hoping his daughter might simply pick up the phone. Jessica Mulroney navigates her divorce while allegedly gathering strength for whatever comes next, and the parade of former employees presumably watches from the sidelines, perhaps comparing notes about their shared experiences. The Sussex story has always been sold as a fairy tale of love conquering all obstacles. But fairy tales require heroes whose actions match their proclaimed values. What happens when the accumulated evidence suggests something far less noble? What happens when the discarded friends, abandoned family, and fleeing staff finally decide they've remained silent long enough? The next chapter in this saga promises to be the most explosive yet, and Meghan Markle may discover that the secrets she thought were safely buried have been carefully preserved by people she underestimated. Drop your thoughts below. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned because the next video is waiting, and you won't believe what's coming next.